have been a locum CRNA for about 8 years now. So I did start off working W-2, and the story to me getting to locum, I never even thought about being a locum in school. That wasn't on my radar. Maybe we talked about locum. I don't even really. The first time I was introduced to a locum was when we had some locum providers come to provide coverage at my the first group I worked with, which I was ecstatic because I'm like, yes, we're getting breaks, no more overtime. We have help with staffing, so I thought it was great to have extra help with our group. But it never really, at that point, it wasn't on my radar. So I met my now husband, and he was living in Utah, and I couldn't find a job, so I started looking into like locum work, and that's kind of how I started my locum career. And honestly, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do this forever. It's just like one contract led to the next, and here I am 8 years later. I'm a locum. And even at one point I was like, well, once I have a child, surely I'm gonna go back full-time. I'm not gonna do locum, because the thing with locum work is there's always the possibility of you not having your contract, giving you 30 days, they don't need you anymore. It takes 90 days usually to get privileges at another job, so you always have that in the back of your mind. You can get let go at any time. That's just kind of the deal with locum work. And prior to the whole COVID shift in healthcare, I used to travel out of state for locum work. It wasn't really as lucrative in where I live, so I would travel out of state. So being able to having that flexibility to travel out of state, move around, was definitely needed in the beginning of my locum career. But now, which I feel like the market is shifting now. That's the other thing with locum work. I feel like in 8 years I've seen the waves. There were no jobs really where I live, then there was a big boom, a big demand for locums, and now I feel like it's starting to dwindle down again, which over time I've picked up PRN jobs, which even with PRN jobs is not guaranteed work. So if you need a guaranteed income or amount of money that you want to make, depending on PRNs, it's like, it's all right. But I will say, locum work, you gotta have some thick skin for it. Now, I have been to groups that have been so kind, so welcoming, so friendly, and I have been to groups that have not been so kind, not so welcoming. And I think some of the things, which are just little nuances, which you get over. And of course, when you start a new place, finding where everything is at, and then introducing yourself 11 million thousand times over and over again. Those are two things I'd be like, just get my mind right. Okay, about to be the new girl on the crew on the block. You gotta introduce yourself a ton of times, figure out where everything's at. Anesthesia is anesthesia. You flow of how each group does it, you pick it up. Over time, it's usually pretty similar. Are some things I do miss about working full time. Of course, PTO. Find myself as a locum, you'd have to manage your finance as well, because when you don't work, you don't get paid. So always keeping that in your mind about, setting aside funds for emergencies, for vacation, for X, Y, and Z, because you don't have short-term disability, you don't have no FMLA, PTO, so you need to always have some cushion and be prepared for that, which you make enough money to do that. I do miss my PTO, and even the planning of taking time off. I know sometimes you can get fixated on like making sure I work, like the work is there and you'll keep getting asked to work. And unlike full-time work where you kind of sit down, go through the year, maybe you have 7 weeks vacation, usually you kind of plan your vacation weeks off with your group, so you kind of know already when you're taking time off. I had to start taking that approach with locum work as well, because I found myself some years just working, because at one point I'm only want to take time off if I had somewhere to go, but realizing like you need to take time off just not to burn yourself out, just to do nothing, just to stay home, whatever. So sitting down, looking at my schedule, and just mapping out some time off, even if it's just to watch Netflix and take a breather and be okay with not making money that week. That's another thing too, because you might feel like you kind of fixate a little more on how much money you're making compared to when you're W-2 and it's salary and it's guaranteed and you get paid to be off. Another thing I miss about full-time is just getting that sense of, I guess, like community, your team, everybody knows you. I had worked with a pretty tight-knit group my first couple of years out of school. We were real cool. We'd go to brunch, we'd hang out, we were involved in one another's life. And not to say you won't find that in locum work. You may, maybe not necessarily with the group you're working with, but you might click up with some other locums. I feel like since I've kind of stayed in the same area for the past few years, I've been able to work with some of the same locums. It's just different compared to when group is your family, this is your home, this is you work. It's just a different feeling than when W-2 versus locum and having work family type of thing. I do miss having that. What else? Now, and I do get asked if I will ever go back full time. time. And I never say never, because you just never know where life will take you, and you always have to do what works best for you in that season, that chapter of your life. And at the end of the day, working locum or working W-2 as a CR just makes sense for you and for where you are in your life and what you want to do. And because locum work is not easy, you have to uproot, sometimes you have to travel a lot, you have to be the new kid on the block, you have to have even thicker skin. Like, I gotta have some thick skin in anesthesia, but as a locum CRNA, you probably gotta have like leather thick skin, to the point where you real focus on taking care of your patient and kind of home as your priorities and main things, and try not to let anything get in between that. But I will say it can be challenging sometimes. People can be peopling, unfortunately, but you have to stay focused on, why you're doing locums, why you're there in the first place. And over time, with the experience, it gets easier and you're more adaptable, or understand what all it's about and how to approach different situations and stuff like that. But there are things that I do miss from W-2 work that I don't necessarily get from locum work. But everything got its pros and cons. Gotta work for you.